Margaret get to your seat. Good morning, Margaret. Good morning, everyone, and welcome members to the 12th meeting this year of the Standards, Procedures and Public Appointments Committee. And could I just remind everyone, if you've not already done so, to switch off your mobile phone and your Blackberries. And we have received apologies this morning from our colleague David Thompson, the convener, who can't be with us today. So we're sorry about that, but I'd now like to welcome on item 1 today is to enable a new committee member to declare any relevant interests, and Cameron Buchanan has joined the committee and he is replacing John Lamont. And I'd like to thank John Lamont for his time on the committee, and I'll invite Cameron Buchanan to declare any relevant interests.
No relevant interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and welcome to the committee. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Hope it will remain so.
And item 2 on today's agenda is for the committee to agree to take agenda item 5 in private. Agenda item 5 is for the committee to consider a further paper on the presiding officer and deputy presiding officer elections into the next session. Do members agree to take this item in private? Thank you very much. And if we move to agenda item 3, which is the cross-party groups, and this agenda item is for the committee to take evidence from Jean Urquhart, MSP, and Joan McAlpine. And welcome to both of you on the proposed cross-party groups on culture, and Richard Baker. Welcome as well, Richard, on the proposed cross-party groups on France. And I would like to open the questioning by asking you to tell us a little bit more about the purpose of the cross-party group on culture.
Thank you, convener. I'm delighted to do that. I mean, I think that possibly our application shows you that the amount of interest in this group from arts organisations across Scotland, which really endorsed our thoughts about the lack of meeting place and cross art form group, if you like, discussion that takes place in Scotland, and that it should happen here in the Parliament. So there's been enormous support for the group. The purpose of it is to provide an opportunity for different art forms to talk to each other, to better understand some of the problems, to genuinely exchange ideas and collaborative working between different artists, but also to actually put on performances in the Parliament and to try and raise awareness of the importance of the cultural programmes in Scotland to members of the Scottish Parliament.
Thank you very much. And perhaps I could invite other members around the table if they have any particular questions that they would like to ask. Fiona.
Good morning, Jean and Joan. Can I ask, you've got in that Creative Scotland will provide the secretariat, etc. And I wondered if you could put a financial cost against the provision of their secretariat. And I also noticed that you said that they hope to be able to provide travel expenses for those travelling to the CPG.
That sounds very general. I mean, as I said earlier, we're hoping to have a number of artists perform, and the Creative Scotland are aware that artists quite often live on the breadline, as we know, and that might restrict some of the people who could come and take part actively in the meeting. And they have proposed that in this first year anyway, just to see how it works, that there would be some money available to allow artists to take part who otherwise couldn't.
Very laudable, and it's very encouraging to hear them offering that. Yeah. But for our point of view, I think we would need to have a bit more detail about a projected cost for that, if that would be possible.
Well, I think I can share with you that the Creative Scotland have put aside a budget of 5,000 in the first for this year to cover costs of 4 meetings. So may sound quite a lot just now, but it's possibly, depending where we're bringing people from,
Yeah.
it's probably a kind of reasonable
Good.
figure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. That's a very helpful question. Yes, would you like to ask a question?
Can I ask the question to you? Cameron Buchanan, good morning. I'm rather surprised there hasn't been a cross-party group on culture before. I'd have thought with all the cultural activities going on in the Parliament that there would have been one. And are you intending to sort of, it says here, a showcase for the arts in Parliament, are you intending to hold exhibitions and things rather like the tapestry and things? Was that not covered by it?
Well, I think we were surprised that there wasn't a cross-party group in culture, and that's why we had discussions to set one up. Certainly what we felt was that if you're talking about culture, you can go down the road of talking about strategy and the politics of culture and the administration of culture, and that would isolate many artists. So if we're going to have a cross-party group in culture, we wanted culture to be at the heart of it. So the plan was that the group would discuss certain topics, but as part of each meeting there would be performances and there would be the opportunity for artists to perform. And also we're very keen to get artists as part of the group as opposed to arts organisations and arts administrators. We wanted artists to feel that they were at the heart of their parliament and they were able to talk to parliamentarians, and that the channels of communication were open to them.
I think that's very laudable. That's, I think, is almost essential, I would have said, because I think otherwise they'll feel slightly alienated just with a whole group of people here and them there, so them and us sort of situation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? I mean, I think I'd just like to ask a question, another one myself, if I may, and that is to ask Jean Urquhart whether the group is satisfied that its remit is sufficiently specific. I mean, I think one of the issues that we like to look at in this committee is about, I think you did mention about identifying some of the problems, but I think it's about, you know, identifying the problems and sharing that knowledge and experience within the Parliament as well. So I don't know if you'd like to comment on that a little bit more, either one of you.
I suppose in some ways, because it's a new group, and Joan has explained the kind of need for the group, and the sector itself has done that. But thereafter, in a sense, I'm quite keen just to see what unfolds in the first year, because the idea of it is to respond to need as well. I mean, people will come along because they've got something to say. So, to a certain extent, I think we're as focused as we can be in bringing people together, in sharing experience, in discussing, and there are undoubtedly issues about raising awareness of the arts in the Parliament and trying to showcase them. So more than that, I think that's as focused as we could be. Joan, I think.
Yes, I think I'm convener. I'm not sure whether when you talked about the focus, whether it was the word culture you felt was very broad. I mean, we actually discussed in our pre-meetings with interested parties, you know, what they would like to call it, and I think one of the attractions for the people working in the arts was that it gave them the opportunity to speak to right across the art forms. People who were, you know, poets could speak to filmmakers and so on. So therefore, it's good that it's broad, because it can allow people who you might otherwise call creative industries that perhaps work in the more commercial side of the arts to talk to people who are like writers who work, you know, entirely as sole traders, so to speak. So it was the idea that we had to keep it broad because you get that kind of cross-cultural pollination.
I totally accept that. I mean, I just think that from my perspective, I was thinking more about what you do when you convert that into parliamentary actions and activity. And I think that was why I was wondering about the remit in that context. But, you know, I wouldn't worry about that too much, but I just think it's something for you to reflect upon. And we'll hear what other colleagues have got to say, perhaps in the discussion that follows. But I think the other point that maybe just to ask you to think about as well, and that is when you do your annual report, you know, to follow up on the point that Fiona MacLeod has raised this morning. You know, when you're looking at your budget, I mean, I think it would be very good if that annual report could actually state specifically what all the costs have been, because, I mean, I think that each of us, when we run cross-party groups, there's a variety of costs that arise that are not always anticipated, but provided that they're in the annual report, I think that allows for the transparency that Parliament is seeking to have. So I think that's really, you know, the issue there. But do members have any other points or questions that they would like to raise?
Perhaps just one. Yes. I don't know if either Jean or Joan could answer it. I mean, I noticed there was a cross-party group before on culture, but it was dissolved. And do we know why that was, or is it just because it hadn't been reformed?
Sorry, right. I wasn't aware of it. It was obviously before we were both elected in 2011, so we weren't aware of that.
Well, it's in the forum, so okay, thank you.
Members have no other questions, then thank you very much for your attendance. You can sit in the chairs behind you if you like and wait for the discussion that follows with members. But just to say thank you for that evidence, and to invite Richard Baker to the table as well now. Good morning, Richard, and thank you for being here with members this morning. And just to start by inviting my colleagues to see if they have any particular questions. And Dick, you would like to start?
Morning, Richard. Basically, the situation is that if you take the application we've just listened to before, they have detailed quite a number of organisations that are going to be involved in the cross-party group. The new cross-party group on France, which I know says that further develop existing relationship, cultural, economic exchange, function as a supporting body to the Scottish-French diplomatic relations. You don't detail any other organisations. Is there any other organisations going to be involved in the group?
Yes, there will be, Richard. I mean, I should say I must defer to my colleagues Alex Johnson and Christian Allard, who are very much involved in bringing the group forward, particularly to Mr. Allard. I will defer.
That was my next question.
And unfortunately, they couldn't be at the meeting today. But I am aware that there are a number of different groups who wish to be involved in the cross-party group. I mean, in particular, of course, you've got the Consulate General based in Edinburgh, but you also have the Institut Français, which is based in Edinburgh as well. And that is engaged in a huge number of activities to promote France and French culture and historic and continuing relationships between Scotland and France, far more than I was aware of, Rich. And I think one of the aims of the cross-party group would be promote some of that work which is going on, which is in terms of promoting education in French language, but also cultural links too. For example, there's a number of different cultural exhibitions which the Institute promotes, and of course to promote links which we have economically as well. Now, I'm a North East member, and I think Mr. Johnston and I are particularly interested because we have companies like Total working in the energy sector. We have very many French people living and working in the North East, and I think some people said they were surprised there wasn't an ongoing cross-party group of culture. Some people said to me, given all the links we have with France, the number of French people living here, it's quite a surprise there's no, and now we have a French MSP too, as it happens. It's quite a surprise. We don't have a cross-party group on France, but with other countries that there are cross-party groups. So there would be a number of different organisations involved. The Institut Français would be happy to provide organisational support to the group. There's also a Alliance Française in Glasgow as well. So in fact, throughout Scotland, there are quite a number of different groups I think could be very interested in supporting the work of the cross-party group.
As I said earlier, I'm sorry to interrupt you, basically my next question was going to be why is Christian Allard and Alex Johnson not here, but I take it in another business.
They've got other committee meetings.
Well done you for stepping up to the mark.
I do my best.
Basically, the situation, you are correct that Scotland has a long history a very long history with France under the old alliance, and it was just to find out the other organisations. I think the other question which will come in, and you may be able to answer or not, is the cost of running the group and how that would be funded, who would pay for that, or any cost for Secretariat.
Well, I was at the meeting to plan the work forward for the group if this application is successful, and the Institute Français were there, and they made very clear that they would provide organisational support to the group. I don't think we're expecting any costs to be anything other than minimal, frankly, because we're expecting if people are travelling within Scotland to, come to the group themselves, and obviously these groups are already based in Scotland. Having said that, there is a proposal from the French consul to arrange a visit of French parliamentarians to Holyrood. Now that would, I imagine, incur significant costs, but my understanding is that those costs would not be in any way involving the cross-party groups, and that's been communicated to me as a principle of that. And so that would be something that would be arranged by the French consulate themselves and by the appropriate French authorities.
And I think basically a situation if any costs paid by them wouldn't attribute, but possibly the cost could be something like £1,000 a year. Or
I think you put me on the spot a bit there, Richard, to be honest with you. I mean, from what was discussed at the meeting, I would have expected that would certainly accommodate the intentions of the cross-party group as to what the cross-party group itself wants to achieve through this. Having said that, I do know that if there's a proposal from the French consul, for example, that there'll be a visit of French parliamentarians, and Christian's told me that there will be such a proposal, then of course there'll be more costs involved in that, but those will not be related to the cross-party group. I think the idea is a cross-party group, if it exists at that point, will be able to be involved and help facilitate, some arrangements for that visit, but not such, as far as I'm aware, that would incur significant costs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fiona, you would like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Good morning, Richard. Can
Morning,
I just
Fiona.
perhaps ask you the financial question in a slightly different way? You said that the Institut Français d'Écosse have said that they will help with the organisation of the cross-party group. Under Secretary, you've got an individual named person. So what the committee would look for under the financial benefits section is if the Institut Français d'Écosse is providing a member of staff to do the secretariat and organisation, that they would provide you with an approximate cost of that staff member's time spent on that, and that's what we would like to see in the column financial benefits.
That's a very reasonable point, Convener, not one that I'm in a position, unfortunately, to arrive at a figure for that immediately. I don't know if it was expected that person would be taking it, as part of their duties, or, in what capacity that individual would be doing it. So, again, I think it's not foreseen that these will be a particularly onerous burden, but, if a definite figure is required, that's something which have to be supplied at a later date.
Satisfied.
Certainly, I'm sure that will be able to be done.
And I think if I may ask just one further question, maybe to ask you to expand a little bit more on the detail on what the relationship will be between the Institut Français and the group. Is there anything else you would like to add to what that relationship might be?
I think the relationship will be certainly informing the work of the group and some of the meetings we would intend to have. I mean, as I was saying, Convener, earlier on, that at the moment there's a range of different activities that the group is promoting in terms of cultural events and exhibitions, for example. And so I think they would be informing some of the speakers that we would have at the meetings, some of the issues we would focus on as well. And so I think it's of the order of suggesting topics and helping facilitate speakers who would come to enable us to have meetings on those issues.
The last question from me would be whether you expect more members to join the group. It's one of the things that I think in terms of the membership, we just wondered about, the extent of the membership.
Certainly we'd hope that more members will join. I mean, given the fact that there hasn't been a cross-party group in France before, and this is a very new initiative, it's not surprising that we'll hope to get more members interested once the group has been established. But I would say, of course, is that at the moment we do have a very good cross-party interest in the group from Labour, Conservative and Scottish National Party members already. And so there's already been a considerable cross-party nature in the interest, and we hope there will be a greater number of MSPs will wish to be involved in the cross-party group once it's been established and is able to promote its work to other members in a fuller way.
Do any members have any more questions?
I just compliment Richard Baker on his eloquence this morning in regards to in stepping up to the mark with Christian and unfortunately Alec are not here.
That's very kind, Richard. Imagine the first and last of such compliments, but thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated.
We thank you for your attendance here this morning. We're very grateful to you, and we'll be in touch with you following the meeting to let you know the outcome. Thank you. And agenda item 4 is for the committee to discuss the evidence heard from Jean Urquhart and from Richard Baker on the proposed cross-party groups that we've had before us this morning. If we can take the group on culture first and just invite members for their comments. Fiona.
I'm happy to record that. I think this should be accorded recognition. I thought it was really interesting the way that they're wanting to do this very differently from anything else, and laudable that Creative Scotland are going to support artists to actually come to Parliament. I think it sounds really exciting.
And a very extensive membership list as well. I was most impressed when I saw that. Anyone else?
I agree with Fiona, and the membership list that you bring up, convener, is an important point because it's extremely diverse as well. And I just, with the kind of vision that they have for the group, I think it's just fantastic.
Good. Yes.
I must admit that I concur with my colleagues, but it was interesting. They've changed my mind. The discussion has is the issue that you brought forward about the range, this thing, culture, what is it, and whatever. But having heard what they actually said, it actually gives them so much more latitude to do something that bit more different than perhaps we might expect. So it could be quite an exciting group.
I was just wondering if this list of organisations is a bit on the side of anybody that knows me sort of list, because it seems very, very extensive. There's everybody. I was just wondering, have all these people said yes or signed up? I mean, it's very, very wide-ranging.
Yes, I did. That thought did cross my mind as well when I was reading it. I wasn't sure whether it was aspirational or a reality.
I would think it must be aspirational, personally, but I don't know. I mean, it just seems so. I mean, I can't see all a storytelling forum necessarily. I mean, I can see solar bit. I can't take particular examples, but it seems to be everything.
Perhaps we could
we find that out, maybe, do you think?
From them when we write to them. And I mean, I think what you're saying to me, though, is that you would like to agree the principle that they be given recognition, but that we can follow up on the various points that we have raised with them this morning. But particularly that last one, just to check about the membership and maybe have a report back at some stage to us as an information note. So that would be good. Well, that's excellent. And so then we'll move on to the cross-party group on France. And again, can I invite your comments about the cross-party group? Dick? Yes.
Yes, I was very impressed with and that's why I had to compliment him. The evidence given by Richard Baker maybe stepped up to the mark at the last minute. I think it is something which we should consider. At the end of the day, Scotland does have a long history with France under the old alliance, and I think from a cultural and diplomatic and other items that we pass this application also.
Colin, I think you wanted to catch my eye.
Yeah, I fully support this one. It was actually quite a surprise finding there wasn't a cross-party group in France, and I had spoken with the Consul General some time ago on this, and I might have been a wee bit more forward myself in looking at it, but for the fact that being a former councillor here in Edinburgh, I knew an awful lot of the Consul Generals and consular staff in the city, hence the reason anybody that looks at my register of interests and the likes will see that quite a lot of them are dealing with other countries. It was through that, and the amount of stuff that the French do, and they really need a tie-in. They've got stuff at local authority level. They don't have anything here, and I think this would be fantastic.
Excellent. Anyone else? Any comments? And if not, then I take it again, we're agreeing the principle that there be accorded recognition, and thank the members for attending this morning. And that ends the public part of the meeting. And so we move into private session, and we'll allow any press or public to leave if they wish to leave.
Thing. The French, I mean, I know the French very well, but they're very prepared to pay for a lot of this sort of thing. The Alliance Française is very keen on it, so the French, the Consul General, they're really keen on this sort of stuff. So I don't think there'll be any problem with funds, if that's what you're worried about. They will sponsor lots of things. They're very keen on it.
I think it's more the transparency of the funding that we just
But
like to be
they're
sure.
particularly keen on Scotland. I mean,
Yes.
as somebody said, the Old Alliance.
Yes, the Old Alliance,
It's
yes,
much stronger in
indeed.
France than it does seem to be here in many ways. So,
Yes, no, I
sorry,
totally
just
agree
a
with you.
addenda, really.
Thank all the members for their comments, and we'll move on then to agenda item 5, which is now in private.